she came over and we had a little tea party, and it was so nice. I have to say I enjoyed every moment, and it was super cute. She came over with her house shoes, her slippers, and she put them on. I was just thinking that is so German and so adorable. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, it is so great to have you. I'm Antoinette, a New Zealander living in the beautiful wine region of Lower Franconia, Germany. Just the other day, I stumbled upon a video I made many years ago. I was living in a small German village, a very tight-knit community, and at the time I had 2 children. I'm a mother of 3 now. I was really struggling to feel at home in Germany, and I didn't feel as though I was very welcome in this very tight-knit community, and I just always felt like an outsider, and I just didn't know what to do. I'm happy to say that I am in a much better place right now. It actually makes me sad looking back and thinking of how lonely I was and how I wished that I knew what I do now about making friends with Germans and making connections, and I wish that I didn't take everything so personally. So I wanted to share a story about a beautiful friendship that has developed between myself and an elderly German lady who lives on my street. Quite an unlikely friendship. In the past, I have definitely been guilty of putting all Germans into one box and saying Germans are cold or unfriendly, or it's impossible to make friends with Germans, because this is just simply not true. Once you really get to understand German culture, you have a deeper understanding of German mentality, then you realize that you can make friends with Germans, but it may not be the same process as making friends with a New Zealander or somebody from, an English-speaking country. And one thing I've learned is that once you've made a German friend, I know this sounds so cliche, but it is so true. Once you've made a German friend, they are going to be so loyal to you, and, you'll have that friend for life. Germans are more about quality friendships rather than quantity and having lots of acquaintances. So my family and I moved into a house that we built back in, was it 2020? And I didn't know anybody in the neighborhood. It was pretty exciting, but also quite daunting. It was already quite an established neighborhood, lots of families living on the street. I felt like it was quite a tight-knit community from what I could see, but thankfully I did feel pretty welcome. Like, my family and I were welcomed into this neighborhood, which was quite amazing to me because I wasn't used to that feeling when I was living in this village, this little Franconian Bavarian village. So there's a lady probably in her 70s, I would say late 70s, maybe early 80s, and she lives alone. Her husband passed away not long after we moved into the street. And so after that, we didn't see a lot of the lady across the road, and I would always think to myself, should I go over and, introduce myself properly? I just wasn't sure what to do because I knew from past experience that Germans seem to be a lot more reserved than New Zealanders. I don't think that would be something that you would do. Just go over and, introduce yourself. I just got that feeling that, she probably wanted a little bit of privacy during that time. But a couple of years ago, something shifted. My husband was out trimming our hedge and he got talking to her. She was just saying that she's struggling to keep up her garden with her husband gone, and she doesn't have the energy anymore to keep up with it. And she's paid a gardener to come and, take care of her garden and trim the hedge and everything. But she just said it's just so expensive. And Rob said to her, I can come over and trim your hedge and just, tidy up a few things. That is no problem at all. And Rob said, why don't I just come over now? I've got my hedge trimmer. I can tidy up a few things around here. And she said, oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh, but you don't have to. Rob said, it's absolutely no problem. It won't take me long. And so he went over, he, did a little bit of work for her, and he wasn't expecting anything in return. It was, easy for him. He already had out the hedge trimmer. He was, tidying up our place. Anyway, she was so incredibly grateful, and she rang the doorbell a little bit later, she handed us one of those little gift bags filled with chocolates and a few little snacks for the kids, and a little card. And inside the card was, I think she put in, was it 20 or 30 euros? I can't quite remember. And, Rob was not expecting that at all. We were not expecting that. But she said, this is the least I could do. It is so expensive to get a gardener to come and do the work that you've just done. And, I really appreciate it. And Rob said to her that anytime she needs him to come and trim the hedge or tidy up a few things or mow the lawns, just let him know, and that is no problem. And yeah, she was almost crying. She was so grateful. She said, you don't know how much that means to me. And Rob had really broken the ice by just going over and doing that for her. Since then, she has actually come over a few times and asked Rob if he wouldn't mind, trimming a few things. Sometimes he'll come over without her even asking and saying, oh, I see this is a little bit overgrown, and do you want me to, trim that up a bit? And she's always so, so grateful. And every time Rob does something for her, she will, give us an envelope with a little bit of money in there. As I said, Rob would have done it anyway, but that's her way of contributing. She feels as though, she can give back to us a little bit, and she'll always give something to the kids, some chocolate or something like that. And just through chatting, we actually discovered there was a bit of a connection there because her mum was from Poland. And so she didn't grow up with the Polish culture like Rob, or didn't speak Polish or anything like that. It turned out her mother was from the same area of Poland as Rob's dad. And so she had a German father, a Polish mother, but never learnt the language or anything like that, but she still had a little bit of a connection with Poland. She actually went on a little bit of a holiday to Poland, and she sent us this beautiful postcard just saying greetings from Poland, and I hope you're all well, which I thought was very, very sweet. And yeah, just ever since that initial conversation Rob had, and, when he went over and helped her with her garden, I just see her face light up whenever she sees us. Sometimes when Rob is doing a bit of gardening for her, our 4-year-old Luca will go over there as well and just kind of play around in the garden, and she'll bring him snacks and drinks and things like that. She just really adores Luca in particular because he's always chatting with her and super friendly, and she just loves that. But anyway, recently my family and I went to Poland over Easter, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to bring her back something from Poland. And so I bought some really nice chocolate, Polish chocolate. When we got back from Poland, the next day, Luca and I went over and we brought her these Polish chocolates. We rang the doorbell, and she was so happy to see us, and she said, oh, come in. So Luca and I came into her house. We'd never been actually inside the house before, but she was very happy to welcome us in. She offered me a cup of tea and Luca a drink. Luca, being a very active 4-year-old, he was a little bit restless and he was jumping on her couch, and I said, Luca, do not do that. You do not do that in other people's homes, and well, you don't do that in our home, so you definitely shouldn't do that in another person's home. And she said, oh, don't worry about it. He's absolutely fine. He's adorable. He is the sweetest boy that I know. And then she said, oh, come to Oma. And I don't know whether it was a slip of the tongue, but I thought it was so adorable how she referred to herself as Oma. Because we don't have a lot of family around. That's something I kind of crave, that village, that family support here in Germany. I've got Rob's family, but I don't have a big extended family. And so I just found that really sweet, and it almost made me cry when she said that. I don't know why. And then I can't remember how this came up, but I did mention that it was my birthday a few days earlier, and I had turned 40, and I was having a few mixed emotions about turning 40. It was like a big change for me, and she reassured me that 40 is when life begins, and that I'm still so young. I just really enjoyed chatting with her. I just found her just so lovely and warm, and I would never have thought she was so warm if we hadn't have sort of broken that ice, if Rob hadn't have broken the ice with offering to tidy up her garden. And just from looking at her from a distance, I would have thought she was one of those unfriendly Germans, but it was the complete opposite. She was just so warm and lovely and patient and just very, very sweet. So anyway, this was not the end of the story. A few days later, there was a knock at my door. The kids were in school in kindergarten. It would have been about 9 in the morning. And so she rang the doorbell with a present in her hand. It was a gift bag, and she said, "Happy belated 40th birthday." She handed me this gift, and I opened it, and it was some chocolate and a beautiful linen tablecloth, and I almost cried. I was very, very touched. She said, "I hope you like it. It's just something little, but I wanted to, give this to you." And I just said, "Thank you so much." And I gave her a big hug, and she gave me a big hug back. And it wasn't one of those awkward hugs. She actually gave me a proper big hug. And yeah, it was just very, very sweet. And I said to her, "Why don't we meet up sometime soon for a coffee?" I said, and she said, "Oh, that would be lovely, but I don't drink coffee, I just drink tea." And I said, "Well, let's meet up for a tea." She said, "Oh, that would be wonderful. How about tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure, let's meet up tomorrow when the kids are in school and kindergarten." And so we made up that she would come over at 10 o'clock in the morning, and she was there at 10 o'clock on the dot. I had set up a little teapot and all of my Polish pottery. I didn't have any time to do any baking, which I would have loved to have done, but there was a cake that I bought from the supermarket. I also put on her tablecloth. I ironed it and put it on the table, and I had a little bouquet of flowers from the garden. And yeah, she came over and we had a little tea party, and it was so nice. I have to say, I enjoyed every moment, and it was super cute. She came over with her house shoes, her slippers, and she put them on. I was just thinking, that is so German and so adorable. She also brought over some tea bags, which I thought was so cute. She said, "Oh, I only drink black tea, so I've brought over some tea bags." So anyway, we sat down and we had a wonderful chat, and she just said to me that she really admires how I have learnt German. She said, "I can understand everything you're saying, and we can have a really nice conversation, and it's not your first language, and I think that's wonderful." And it just meant so much to me. And I said to her, "Thank you so much for being so patient with me." She was saying to me how she wishes that she could speak English, but she never had the opportunity. And back in the day when she was at school, it wasn't an option to learn English, and now she feels as though she's too old. And I said, "Well, it's great for me that you don't speak English, because I want to speak German with you." I just feel as though we really connected. She said to me, "Now tell me about New Zealand. I don't know a lot about New Zealand. How do you live in New Zealand? I cannot picture it. Please give me, an idea of what life is like there." It just meant a lot for me to know that she was interested in my country and where I'm from. And she was asking me, is it similar to Germany? And she just wanted to know what everyday life looked like in New Zealand. So I showed her a photo book, and I went through, pictures of my family and pictures of New Zealand. And she was really interested in my mum, because my mum also lost her husband, my dad, many years ago. And I could see she felt as though she could relate to my mum, and she wanted to know, how it was for mum raising us on her own without my dad. And, I told her about how my dad died of leukemia, and she was really interested. And then she shared some stories about her husband, and she brought out a photo of her husband, and she got a little bit teary, and I just sat and listened. And then she also asked me, how do I feel in Germany? Do I feel at home here, and do I miss my family in New Zealand? And I explained to her that it hasn't always been easy to make friends, in Germany. And in New Zealand, people are a lot more open, and it is easier to make friendships. And she told me that even for somebody like herself, who was born and raised in this area, it still takes her a long time to make friendships, to build up friendships. She was telling me about how difficult it was when her husband died, and how lonely she was feeling. And what helped her get out of that really low point is making connections with other people. She joined a little social group with some ladies around her age, and they meet every week. And she said that that really helped to bring her out of a really dark period in her life, having that social interaction. And she was just explaining to me that in Germany, friendships don't happen overnight. They are something that, take time. And it really meant a lot to me, hearing that from a German, somebody who has grown up in Germany. And it made me feel like it wasn't me. I shouldn't take it personally, the times that I have struggled to find friends and make connections. Germans can just be a lot more reserved, and they take a lot longer to warm up and to build trust. And once you have really made that connection and you've built that trust with a German, then they are going to be so loyal to you. And I think this is a perfect example of how German friendships take time to develop. But once you have developed a friendship, then that friendship is so special. So I would say she stayed for about an hour, and I really enjoyed that hour. I actually didn't want her to leave. She could have stayed for longer, but she was very respectful and said, I know that, the children will be home soon, and this was so nice. We need to do this again very soon. We will definitely be catching up soon for a cup of tea. And I could tell that it meant a lot to her just to have that company, and it definitely meant a lot to me to have that company, but also to be able to practice my German without judgment, and knowing that she wanted to spend time with me, and that she was, interested in my life and I was interested in her life. And I just think we have developed a really beautiful friendship. I just wanted to share this story because it's little things like this that have made such a difference in my quality of life here in Germany and my happiness levels, you could say. I feel so much more integrated and just so much more welcome here, all because of these little connections that I have made with Germans in my community. And, these connections have taken time. These friendships have taken time to develop, but I have never given up. And I am at the point now where I'm just really happy living in Germany. I feel as though I have a village surrounding me, and it has just made such a difference in my life. So anyway, guys, I have come to the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoy these kind of story time videos, let me know, because I have so many stories like this that I could share, and I really enjoy sharing these kind of experiences and sharing, different aspects of my life and my adventures here in Germany. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. It really helps out my channel. It helps get my videos out there and noticed. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, I would absolutely love you to consider subscribing. That would mean so much to me. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram, and I will see you again really soon. Bye.